For some people, traditional schools work better. And by the way, we thought at a certain point, you know, Beau was really struggling, I thought. This is my view.
Yeah.
Beau was really struggling with our homeschool structure. And we were discussing like maybe traditional school structure is going to be better for her. And so it's just a discussion. There's no one size fits all.
Right.
That's a very important point.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at homeschooling, go at it with an open mind, research, and figure out where in that spectrum it works for you.
All right, guys, I am so excited because this is the long-awaited episode on
Homeschooling.
Wow, you guys, I've had over the years so many questions, and yes, we've actually had questions. I've seen that meme 1,000 times. Girl, nobody asked you. No, unfortunately, we have a lot of people who have...
Fortunately.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But yes, I've had an overwhelming amount of questions, though, that had to do with homeschooling, and I never felt like a little reply on Instagram or a DM would be sufficient. And so I brought over this lovely man who is my partner in homeschooling, and I would love to tell you our journey and why we homeschool.
So when did you guys decide to homeschool?
When Claude was pregnant with Jet, we wanted Jet to be bilingual. It's much more difficult to become fluent later in life.
Yeah.
And so we really wanted to give Jet the gift of another language. And so the plan that we devised for that was to have her stay with Gladys, who is their auntie.
Who's been with us
Yes,
since Jet was a baby, and we absolutely love her.
But,
yeah,
okay.
I was working, you were working, and we really wanted to make sure that she was bilingual. It was so important to us.
And interestingly enough, Jet's primary language, the first language Jet spoke, was Spanish. She didn't know English for the first 3 years of her life.
Yeah.
¿Qué color es esa? ¿Qué color es esa paleta?
Rojo.
Muy bien, rojo.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. A tu rotadito, me moros pollitos, hace otro día. ¿Qué ves? Vamos a pasear. Vamos a ver unos nuevos amigos. Torito. Tapatolito. Préstale.
The way it fell into the homeschooling is that if our priority was to keep her with Gladys, then the question is, you know, what are we doing to supplement her other developments? So we did the pivot from nursery school. We didn't want to do that. Then when preschool age came around, we said, you know what, this is working well. Let's keep going on this path. And then when it came time to think about sending her to kindergarten, we did a lot of research around private schools and trying to figure out what private school most best kind of aligned with our values.
Yes. Yep.
And it was a difficult search. I mean, it really was difficult. And even when we found schools that somewhat espoused the values that we wanted to instill in our girls, they never really quite sat well with us.
No.
There was an epiphany. There's a big aha moment.
Yeah.
And I always say that sometimes, especially us, like we do a lot of things differently, from surprise weddings to, you know, to homeschooling. We do things differently.
Yes.
We consider ourselves outside the box thinkers.
Yeah.
But there's always another box. And sometimes you don't know the box that you're thinking inside of until somebody shows you the walls. And that's why it's so important to just listen and be receptive to what people tell you, because
So good.
one day Israel,
Our
brother-in-law, he asked a seemingly innocent question, although I think it was calculated, obviously, because he knows how I think.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey, man," in the way he does. I wonder, what are you guys thinking about for Jet's education? Right? A concerned uncle wants to know about, you know, what's Jet's education going to look like. And, you know, I kind of opened up to him and I was like, man, you know, this has been very difficult. We really, you know, we're honing in on some progressive schools that we're looking at that we think might work. but it's difficult. And he asks,
Yeah.
he asked me, he says, how much is it gonna cost? And when I told him,
Guys.
his eyes went like this. It's a ridiculous price tag. Okay, anyway, so he said, man, I just got sticker shock. He said, let me ask you this question, and this is the question that changed everything, at least for us, right? What if you were to take that money that you've clearly budgeted for Jet's education and curated a curriculum that looks exactly the way you would want it to look? I'm talking about music lessons, dance lessons, arts, whatever. What would the biggest, best curriculum for them, what would it look like? And I'm telling you, when that just set off such an epiphany, and I just got to work right away. The research, I mean, hours and hours of research.
And that's another thing with homeschooling. Research is so necessary. You can't just take our word for it. You have to do your own research. And Jared, thankfully, did that. And I have a wonderful partner who did that. And I remember you were like, Jared, with his Microsoft Excel worksheet. Spreadsheet, just putting the numbers in.
The budget got put together that night, in fact.
Oh, I know.
It came in like 40% below what a private school education would have been. And I'm talking about with everything we could possibly fill our schedule with.
Yeah.
Right? So, man, it was interesting because that conversation just essentially gave us permission to go in a different direction. And then when we took a step back and we looked back at what we had been doing with Jet the entire time, we had been homeschooling the entire time. And we just needed somebody to say, hey, you're allowed to do this too.
And those are the small D's.
That's the lowercase one.
The low.
I am bigger to do it.
Yes, you are.
What are you using to smell?
My nose.
When I first started this, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I have to fill up Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. That's what was in my head. I went to public school and I was stuck in there in that box. I call it the matrix, where I'm thinking this is how I have to do it and I have to stand in front of my kids and do this. And I realized that I don't have to be in that box and my children don't necessarily have to do things from 8 to 3. And it released a lot of pressure because I was like, oh my gosh, it allowed me to now actually teach them in a really natural environment, walking around, going out, doing things with them. And that was such a moment for me where I was like, I don't have to be in front of them from 8 to 3. They don't have to sit down. They don't have to do lunch from 12 to 1. Like, it was mind-blowing. And as simple as that sounds, a lot of people, when they first they visit this idea, they're like, how do you do it Monday through Friday? And when I say, why do you have to do it from Monday through Friday? They're like, and it's a lot of undoing the things that we've learned. Unconditioning the things that we've learned. And that's hard. It really is.
That's the other part about homeschooling is that everything, it's not Monday through Friday. It's Sunday to Sunday. At various hours, at various opportunities. It's travel, it's a trip to the grocery store. If you're homeschooling, then education is always on your mind and everything is a teachable moment. And there's obviously structure in there.
Homeschooling for us is we get up in the morning and for me and my girls, we connect with each other. We sit down, we have conversation. It allows us to kind of, there's no rush to get to a certain destination. It is a very beautiful, natural morning for us. We have a time where we read because I feel like that starts jogging the imagination. I read to them a book. My girls are avid readers. And then we start breaking off into our more academically based learning, which is for our girls, we have, and we actually are thinking about doing an episode about like the actual day, what the day actually looks like. And that is, they have a wonderful tutor that has been with them for quite a few years. And she's a certified teacher, and basically her job description, to put it this way, is to make sure that at every turn, at every moment of their academic career, they have learned
exactly as much as they need to learn if we were to pivot and send them to school, traditional school.
So she
if
kind
we
of
ever had
covers-
to pivot that, she basically covers the parts that we miss. She's a tremendous supplement.
Yeah, and she's actually a Board of Education, she's a certified teacher. And but before the pandemic, she would come to the house. They would do experiments. They were always cracking up. It was a lot of running around in the house, trying to again science experiments, and it was really beautiful.
So one of them is creating a lava lamp.
Oh, that's
It's simple with oil, water, and food coloring. And then you just put Alka-Seltzer.
That's one of
And
my
then it
favorites
activates
too.
Okay, what was the
And then
other
the other one is dancing raisins
That's what I was gonna say.
one? How do raisins dance?
with
Tonic water.
tonic water, and you put them in it, and then they are like a musical band.
Well, what about socialization?
Oh, okay.
The ever asked socialization question.
This is, and I have
This is the most common
This is the
question.
most common question.
It's a fair question. The reason people ask about socialization is because I think there are two assumptions that, in my view, are flawed that people have. One is as it relates to homeschooling. And when homeschooling comes to people's mind, they think about a frumpy wife in a frumpy dress in front of a chalkboard with two kids with blank expressions on their face, and that's it. And no socialization. They don't
Like
have
they
any
don't talk,
friends, and they
They're
don't
very,
go
like-
out, and they don't venture out, and they're super awkward. By the way, if that's what homeschooling looked like for us, then we probably have some socially awkward kids. That's assumption number one, which is not correct.
Yeah.
Homeschooling is a range of different things, and we can get into that.
And then the other assumption is also that there's a religious maybe aspect to it, which is not for us. It's not for a lot of homeschooling parents.
Right, and like we're in an encapsulated community that only you know stays to itself. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's
that's not
religious
it.
at all.
Yeah.
The other assumption, I think, is, and this is a deeper one, and one that required a lot of research on our part, is, well, what does good socialization look like? And the assumption that traditional school structures provide the best path to socializing your kid, which, when you really dig into it, is just, in our view, again, people can have different views, but in our view, it's not correct. To assume that well-socialized kids have to go to traditional school, I think we've all seen horribly socialized kids in the traditional school setting, from bullies to wallflowers, right? So challenging that assumption was the first thing that we had to do to dig into what does good socialization look like, and then how do we model that? If you want a well-socialized kid, then you have to model the world for what it actually looks like for them as an adult. And a well-socialized person that you meet is somebody who can step into a room full of strangers, interact with them, make a connection, and walk out with a friend.
Yes.
That to me is a well-socialized individual. By the way, I also don't want to paint the picture that our kids are overly sheltered. We introduce adversity to them. We allow them to deal with their adversity. If it's a bully in the park, if it's a bully in ballet class,
deal
with it. And I'm going to give you the tools to deal with it. I'm going to advise you. You take the tools. I'm going to give you some advice and come back and report to me on how it went. Because when they can do that, and report back and says this was successful, now you've given them the tools to be able to deal with that situation going forward.
The pandemic took away a lot of our social activities, just the way it did for traditional school kids. It took it away, and
like what?
Well, my kids were in everything from Girl Scouts, swimming, tennis. They had ballet class, gymnastics. They went to their winter wilderness. They have like an outdoor survival, and it's actually a lot of homeschooling kids. They do that, and they had a blast there. And it literally just halted everything.
I used to play tennis, and I didn't know what happened though. The pandemic, and then And now we're starting to go to tennis class again.
So it wasn't just going back to Lana's question was, we were also affected because this is now, it took away what we knew,
Right.
what we always called our world schooling.
We always say that homeschooling, at least the way we do it, is a bit of a misnomer because they were almost never home.
Ever.
So you've homeschooled for over 9 years. Do you plan to homeschool all the way?
One of the things that got us comfortable with this is that, hey, if we do this right and we make sure that at every moment we can pivot to traditional school and they won't be, in over their heads academically, then we can look at this as, let's take it step by step, year by year, and see where it goes. We're not signing a 12-year contract.
No.
We are taking it year by year. We're assessing, reassessing as we go. And we also want to give our kids agency, right? We want them to, at this point at which, we trust their judgment and they're properly, vocal about what they want for themselves.
Yep.
Let's have the conversation. If you decide you want to go to traditional school, that conversation is on the table for discussion.
Yeah.
And that's our view.
And guess what? I don't know if Jet knows this, but I already started to look up different things because I want to be prepared to
Like different schools?
Different schools that may jive. We've been looking into Waldorf, high schools, just that kind of jive, and would be an easier transition for her if the day ever came where she says, you know what,
I really
Mom,
wanna
I think
try.
I want to try it, and we would never take that away from them.
Absolutely.
Ever, ever, ever.
Would you want to go to traditional school eventually?
Yes, for high school.
What about you, Beau?
I would not want to go to that, but I'm definitely going to college.
You are?
Actually, I would want to go to high school because then I would get my little dorm, right?
High school, I think.
No, college is dorms.
Homeschooled kids academically perform not just better in terms of the standardized tests to get into college, but they perform better academically when they're in college because by that point,
they're already the teachers. They are self-motivated. They are self-driven. You don't have to ask them 100 times, when can you get it? I already see Jet. Jet is like, they love to learn. There is this craving to learn. So they are very self-driven.
When it's college, I would want to have dorms with Jetty.
You want to dorm with Jetty when you're in college?
I don't know if I'm gonna go to college or
You
not.
do, okay.
I don't know. It's a maybe.
The kids shouldn't be doing this. The kids shouldn't be on their computer. And something that Jared told me was like, oh, you were talking about how we need to ready our kids, get them prepared for the world that is going to be when they get out of high school.
exactly.
That my editing class and my Roblox coding class.
You know how to code?
Yeah.
We made a game in
Yeah,
Roblox.
we made a game in Roblox, but nobody joins it, and it's
Join Escape the Impossible Obby by Mr. Jellyman.
I applaud my homeschooling moms. I have Christine, I have Tamara, I have Talia, all these lovely ladies that and they all do it differently, and they all do it with different budgets, and they're just so thoughtful and so intentional that it's so beautiful to watch. People should be free to find or make for themselves the kinds of educational experiences they want their children to have. Jared and I recognize that homeschooling is not an option for so many. It certainly wasn't an option for our parents who neither had the time nor the resources to homeschool. That's why it's so important to support our public schools where so many of our youth are educated. So to that end, this episode is dedicated to Pencil, a nonprofit that connects New York City public schools to the business world through internships, partnerships with businesses like Bloomberg and LinkedIn, and other career readiness programs. We want to encourage you all to donate to Pencil at the link below. Everything counts. Thanks for watching and for bringing your heart and open mind to such an important topic. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like this video, and follow us on Instagram. Follow Pencil 2